Hey Harmonizers, welcome to this video of King doing his first ever offsite obstacle park, which is pretty exciting. And I thought, well, let's start off super easy and do these little logs over here. You can see there's tons of different obstacles and there was so much to choose from with the different banks and everything, but I thought let's start with some logs. They look pretty easy and innocent enough, right? Well, King did not think so, and he did not want to go over the logs at first. He was really upset. And this was kind of interesting because he had done obstacles when we went to Vermont, and that was his first time doing offsite obstacles, and he did really well, but he had had a chance to settle in for a couple days first. Whereas here, we trailered here by ourselves, and we're here with a bunch of horses that he doesn't know. We're with a bunch of Icelandic horses that I've done clinics with in the past. And so this was all brand new territory for him. And King is the type of horse where he can kind of freeze and he needs time to think through. So I had to do a fair bit of just kind of getting him to be present and waiting for him to settle down. He benefits a lot from doing a lot of waiting. So while everybody else was doing things with their horses, that's me with King sitting there, just sitting there, waiting for him to breathe and lick and chew and just kind of settle. And you can see everybody else is working on things with their horses. There's a splash box, there's a ladder, there's a cake box, there's all kind of cool stuff. And that's probably the hardest part as a horse trainer, is having the patience to do what your horse needs and putting your ego aside to train the horse that shows up. And even though I know King can do lots of obstacles, he can definitely walk over some little logs. Are you kidding me, King? He can definitely walk over logs, but it was hard for him. It was hard for him because he had just shown up and he tends to internalize stress and was just being upset about that and needed to kind of freeze and do his thing and think. And so what I end up doing is when he makes kind of a slight attempt, I end up giving him a cookie to reward that little baby attempt. And I just kind of wait, give him lots of time to think and process, because if I really kick him and push him forward, then what's going to happen is he is just going to get stressed out and it's not going to go well. So here he kind of had put his little foot over the pole, so he gets a cookie, which helps him start to lick and chew. It gets him to bend, which helps him to be a bit more present. And then I'm able to ask him to try again. And you can see he very carefully goes over those poles, and he did it. And now that could have looked very different. Sure, I could have kicked him and he could have gotten over faster, but he would have really been stressed out about it rather than walking over the poles really calmly. And remember, I'm trying to build a horse that's calm and connected to me and that's able to think his way through different things, not trying to have a horse that's just reactive and explodes through things and just kind of crashes into stuff and is dangerous for both of us, really, because at the end of the day, I want him to be safe. And you're only safe if you're calm and you're thinking. You're not safe if you are worried and you're being reactive and not responsive. So you can see all the obstacles, all the little ices doing lots of stuff, lots of people on the ground because they started on the ground. And there's me doing a very easy walking up the hill on a little curve pattern. Wanted to keep it really, really easy for him. We were just walking up and down the hill. And then I thought, well, let's try to combine the two things together. Let's do the little hill with kind of like a log. And it is the most babyest little bank drop that you could ask for. It's probably only 12 inches high. It is ridiculously little. He has definitely stepped over bigger things at home. And you can see he's nervous. Here he's doing a little nervous poo, so you know that he's nervous and worked up about this. And I'm just sitting there being like, yeah, like you can do it. And it's that fine line of having enough encouragement and consistency. Like here you can see I'm steering him where I want him to go. And so I have enough forward energy in my seat to suggest, hey, like you can do this. And you can see everybody's doing other stuff and we're just kind of hanging out and waiting, and I'm just keeping him straight, but not so much energy that I cause him to get really worked up and get really upset over this. So here you can see he's going to finally go over this little thing in a little bit. He's got to do a lot of more waiting, and then eventually he's going to go. And it's so hard. It is so hard to stick with something everybody else is doing all this cool things. Some of them are starting to ride their horses and everybody's having a lot of fun. And here I am at the ditch, just, sniffing the grass and praising him for sniffing the grass and kind of thinking about this tiny little step up that he's going to do. And that's hard. That's really hard. And so if you're in that situation, I relate to that and I support you and I'm rooting for you. I'm cheering for you and I'm thanking you for doing that for your horse, because that's ultimately what they need. And so here you can see there's lots of patience going on, and he's trying. You can see him really looking at the little step up, and he's really thinking about it. He's really considering his options here, but he's really trying his hardest. And so I'm just sitting waiting for him. He doesn't need me to pester him. He doesn't need me to harass him and ask him to try harder. He's doing the best he can in that moment. And when he stops trying, I can nudge him a little bit and I can ask him to try a little harder. And I'll do little squeezes with my legs, or I'll do a little bit of clicking with my voice. And you can see here, I'm speeding up the footage again so you can see everybody else is going around doing all sorts of things. We're having little conversations. Sometimes he has moments where he backs up and I have to say, you can try it again. And there he was actually starting to eat a little bit of bites of grass along the way, which I let him take a bite of grass as like a way to kind of say, like, see, it's not so bad. And then eventually he realizes that he can go over, and he kind of looks up and he's not sure. And then he's able to step up. And it's a pretty big deal, and we stop and we get a cookie. You can see he's a little bit upset here still as we turn to go it again. So he's still very stressed about the whole thing. So I go up a kind of a smaller part of it there, stop and give a cookie after each time. And then one of the key things is you don't want to leave a horse on an anxious note. After they do something, you really want to try to repeat it, or if you need to, you can make it easier for them. But you really want your horse leaving an obstacle or a task feeling like, yeah, like that was okay. That was not too bad. I understood it. It wasn't the end of the world. Otherwise, they're going to come back to it so anxious. So you can see, like, he kind of jumped up there, which isn't the end of the world, but I want him leaving this obstacle being like, okay, like, I'm a superstar, I can do that. And I was committed that this could be my only obstacle that day, if that's what it took. Even if I had to get off him, that would be an option. But I really didn't want to get off of him because we're training for the Thoroughbred makeover. And so this was my day to be like, you know what, I'm going to try riding all these obstacles, because when we go to the makeover and when we go to these trail competitions, we have to ride the obstacles. And I don't want to set him up that he's always thinking he can do groundwork first. And we did kind of practice that when we were in Vermont. He had settled into Vermont because we'd been there for a couple days. But when the obstacles came out for the first time, I did ride over them without doing them all on the ground first. So I had kind of set him up to that idea. So you can see I went back to the little logs and did the logs as a way to kind of say, hey, like, remember, you can do this. And he's still kind of rushing up. You can see he's kind of like exploding up the hill a little bit. And I stop and I praise. And then I'm still giving him his cookie afterwards. But I'd really like him to be more relaxed doing that and not quite so stressed about it, because I don't want him thinking that he needs to explode through the different obstacles. So I take him around. There he was a little bit too close to the edge of the ditch. I was like, okay, we're not going to worry about that. And then I wanted to turn him there and just kind of settle and kind of look at it and just wait, because he was a little bit stressed there. So again, if you see stress, instead of ignoring it, stop and wait and praise and then calmly go on. If we can encourage calm thinking horse, we're going to be so much better set up for success. That was a little bit better there, walking up the little bank. And keep in mind, like, he does trot and canter, and we have lots of fun doing that stuff. And it's hard to not want to be like, I'm going to just go trot and canter around, but that's not going to promote the mindset that I want. So I want you to think of it this way. I'm training his mind to be the thinking horse the way that I want it. I'm not training the athleticism right now. I'm not wanting to, work on his hind end and get the benefit of those hills, and that's not what we're doing. We're teaching him how to be a calm thinking horse right now. And that's going to set him up for a future of being amazing in problem solving and able to sort through a lot of different things and not rushing. So here what I'm doing is literally going one step at a time and pausing each way in the hopes that we'll step up a little quieter. So he still kind of came up a little bit excited. He's going to get another cookie there. And then we're going to go back and do it again. And I'm not expecting perfection. I'm not expecting him to do this the way a super seasoned horse would. I'm not expecting it to look quite that amazing, but I'm trying to feel for a higher level of relaxation through this whole process. So we're gonna go through this again here, and again I'm stopping him along the way, and I'm just trying to interrupt that rushing. So in the beginning, I have to let him just do the obstacle at the speed that he wants to do it, and then after that, after he does it a few times, then I can start to influence him and say, you know what, that's a little bit too fast and a little bit too rushed. Could we slow this down a little bit? Could we find this at a little bit more relaxed pace? And then as we go to do that, you know, I let him take a little bit of grass along the way, because I'm kind of saying, hey, like, do you realize this is a really slow, relaxing process? And then I just so calmly pick up my reins, and he still kind of jumps off to the edge there. Not bad, not horrible, but definitely needs some more work with that. But I wasn't really sure how much more I could ask of him realistically in that process. So he was stopping ahead, and he's kind of jumping up. So that could be a lack of a fitness type thing going on there. And so here's the other horses doing a bunch of obstacles, and this was the morning part. So this is all before lunchtime, and then I'm going to save the after lunchtime for part 2, because before lunchtime I really didn't get to do much of anything beyond the beginning obstacles. And there's all this stuff out there. Look at everything that everybody's doing. There's roller bridges, there's a cake box. A cake box is the big square thing. And then there's me with King walking over some other logs in the distance there. So you can see that was a little bit of logs that we just came down the hill. And I thought we're just gonna build on keeping it really easy for our morning session, not get too adventurous. And I was just kind of building on the stuff that was similar to what we'd already done. So we were going up and down the logs that were on the hill there, and then these were more logs, so that this is all kind of similar to what we've been doing. And he was starting to show me that he was getting in a better thinking frame of mind. You can see that was a really nice walk there. That was really, really nice. And then he gets a little cookie there, so everything's going really well here. I'm starting to feel like I've got my horse back, that he's starting to think a little bit more, and you can see he's walking a little bit more relaxed. So it was great to work through enough things and not get so greedy that I was like, okay, let's go do bridges and teeter-totters now. It's like, okay, no, like we're doing the logs, we're gonna get that confident, and then we're gonna break and we're gonna have lunch, and then we're gonna come back and see if we can do a little bit more. So there you can see he went over the logs there, and now he's coming into this little ladder thing, which is essentially just more logs that he has to walk through on a bit of a narrow path. And he did really well. He just went through it on the first try. So that shows me that he was getting relaxed and he was getting understanding. So now it's time for him to take a little lunch break, and you guys will have to wait to see part 2 after lunch. And that's him just hanging out, getting a little bit of grass before we're going to go out to do session number 2. Thanks for watching.